Happy New Year! Hello,
the
everybody.
End of the year Truck
It's the
Spectacular.
Trucks Cast to End All Trucks Cast, the one where we tell you all of the stuff that we've liked this year, which we haven't mentioned before somehow on this Trucks Cast.
We told you last time that our next episode would be the Civil War thing. That's coming
still
later.
happening.
It's coming.
Dude, that truck had Christmas presents on the side. My goodness.
What?
Didn't you see it?
Hold on.
You're gonna reverse?
Yes, I need to see that.
What? Yeah, it's the Hollandaise.
I think that's a DLC thing.
Euro Truck Simulator knows it's the Hollandaise.
I don't own that DLC, but okay, weird.
Yeah, there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Josh, as we're recording this, it's mid-December. Josh is about to leave for the other side of the country, and so there's going to be a bit of a hiatus until this gets posted. Although we have a fuck ton of old content sitting around, so the likelihood is that
hopefully
you might see an episode of Ico in there if you care. We might finish up Illusion of Gaia since that's done and has been done forever. But for right now, this is going to be the big burst of content that is going to have you salivating. And what it is we're going to talk in our annual tradition that is annual since last year about our favorite things.
Our favorite things.
It's
of
gonna
2014.
It's gonna take a while. I'm not giving out any fucking gift baskets this year.
You guys squandered that shit.
Yep, just so you know. And I think that neither of you listen anymore.
One of them might.
Okay, well, if you do, good on you. I'm not giving you any more pears, shithead. All right. So I think that rather than have a sort of a 10-1 this year, because it's a fool's errand.
It was a mistake.
It was a mess.
Make a numerical ordered list.
Particularly since there are two people here with two very different sets of feelings. Is that we're going to do a kind of it's going to split and rejoin itself. It's going to be a sort of a caduceus pattern. We're going to talk about our favorite books, games, movies, music, TVs, and webcomics. Not necessarily in that order. And we
Probably in that order.
Probably in that order. And we are going to do little monologues if it's something that only we like. And we're going to do little dialogues in cases where it's something that we both have opinions about.
Yes, I think, you have most of the monologues, but looking at our schedule here, but
maybe
see.
Not.
We'll see.
Who knows where things will go? That's the magic of trucks, is that really it's a mystery to everybody.
We have to point out that it's New Year's and we're carrying fireworks.
11 tons of fireworks to Germany. And
am I turning here? Yes.
Yes, you are. Okay.
Excuse me.
Yay!
Nice turning radius.
Let's look at those fireworks before we start.
Yeah.
Yay! Crates of explosives.
That's amazing. Okay, what's the button to go in my truck again? There it is.
All right. So I'm going to do a drum roll.
Oh, it's
Josh.
your favorite book of the year.
My favorite book of the year.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be Josh's favorite book of the year.
I thought it was your drum roll. It's your book, but what you were doing made a little more sense. But
It totally did.
I'm going to do a drum roll, and you're going to tell us your favorite book of the year, which is...
It's Ancillary Sword. And also Ancillary Justice, because I read it this year, even though that came out last year, I believe.
Ancillary Sword by whom?
Anne Leckie.
Anne Leckie.
So you might have heard some chatter around your various, internet pods, if you have any love for science fiction at all, about Ancillary Justice, which won all the awards last year, and is the first in a planned trilogy, which is sort of the new...
That was the best truck...
Whoa!
Oh, didn't quite...
So close.
Yeah. It was almost the best truck maneuver of 2014.
Yeah, we can't explode, unfortunately. That would have been better if we'd exploded at the end.
Yeah.
Which is an everything-winning planned science fiction trilogy, which is the new thing, is that people write these big works and sell them to publishers as trilogies, because that's what sells, I guess. And so, all of these are coming out, in a scheduled way, much like The Authority or the Southern Reach trilogy last year, which I'm not going to be talking about. And all the books have matching covers and everything. If you line them up all together, they form a nice aesthetic unity and all of this stuff. But this is the best science fiction book I've read in a very long time. It's also the only science fiction book I've read in a really long time, with a few edge cases. But it's certainly the most memorable science fiction books I've read in a long time. And the reason for that is that it makes a couple of very smart decisions. The first very smart decision it makes is that because of the cultural background of the narrating character, everybody's referred to using she/her pronouns, and no genders are are
Made explicit.
specified, because that's just not the way that the dominant culture in this universe at this point thinks, which is a very interesting effect and has the kind of consequences in the mind of the reader that you might anticipate. It seems kind of gimmicky to a start, but it becomes like really deep and interesting and makes you reflect on things in a way that you might not have otherwise, and care about characters in ways that you might not have otherwise cared about them. So it's a very smart move, and one that I hope will catch on. It is also full of swashbuckling adventure. There's AIs. There's
Me an AI.
grumpy AIs. Yeah, and various reflections on the nature of AIs and the splintering, and characters with multiple bodies and the way that works out. But the thing about it that I like perhaps the most is that it's also just very concerned with the effects of sort of the kind of cosmic political shenanigans that tend to drive, big science fiction narratives like this. The effects that those things have on just ordinary people, ordinary cultures, colonized cultures, the way that, like, all of these planets that, the Galactic Empires colonize still have their own different ethnic groups that still have their own squabbles and their own struggles, and the way that the power imbalance there is, mirrored in the power imbalance with the imperial power. And it addresses these things in a way that is a lot smarter and a lot more considered and a lot more careful than most science fiction I've read. And since the best thing about science fiction is that it allows us to consider these, political, ramifications of our current lifestyle and sort of these, like, extrapolated and, ways that involve laser guns and space fights. It succeeds at that tremendously. And I love that it also contains it's both very good at keeping the large scale going and the small scale going. Ancillary Sword, the second book, is particularly good at that. There was some. I heard a criticism of the first book that the way that it resolves itself is a little too pat, and that it feels like things. Well, that kind of fixes everything in a way that's completely bizarre. And the second book reveals, well, it doesn't actually really fix anything, which is exactly what I was hoping for. So. There you go. That's my favorite book of the year is Ancillary Justice / Ancillary Sword. Josh, what was your favorite book of the year?
Give me a drum roll. ZZT.
ZZT by Anna Anthropy.
I guess this is almost a cheat because my favorite book is about a video game, and this is the fucking books category, not the video game category.
It's still books written. It's still words written on the page.
Yes, all I think about is video games. So a book that thinks about video games is ideal. Anyway. This is a book about a very interesting little artifact that I hadn't heard of. A game called ZZT, which was actually the first game made by, I believe his name is, believe it or not, Tim Sweeney, the founder of a company then known as Epic Mega Games, but now known as Epic Games, the makers of Gears of War and Unreal Tournament. But ZZT was like 1990 or so. This game came out, and it was sold on floppy disk via mail order in the days of the early internet. And so,
man, I remember buying games like that.
Yeah.
Anybody out there play Taskmaker?
Leave us a comment if you played Taskmaker.
You almost certainly didn't.
Where was I? Yeah, right. And what kind of made this game special? I mean, on the most basic level, it's one of them kind of graphical puzzle adventures with with text graphics and some colors, and some clever, like, anachronistic setting details. Like you appear to be in a fantasy environment, but there's like a disco that you go to. Fun things like that, and some just tough as nails. Puzzles and action challenges and stuff like that. It sounds like it was a delightful little smorgasbord, but what really made it special was that it came with one of the very first level editors. And the book explores, after going into the game and how it works and how the level editor works, the community that sprung up around this game's level editor, and like learned to break it open and make it even more powerful than it started as. And did all kinds of things with it. It was basically a primitive Little Big Planet of its day on, like, again, the early internet. And the book contains a lot of fascinating detail on what the early internet was like. And it's stuff that I, like, so barely remember from my yawning days of infancy. The book especially focuses on how the game became this bizarre outlet for teenagers, especially teenagers dealing with things that they didn't know how to deal with in their real lives, like being trans or being a woman. Like this game has like a popular level for this game that you can still play. I'll try and leave a link in the description. It involves being a princess who has to go on an adventure, and the entire thing is characterized by the people you encounter, like doubting your abilities and like saying, "Oh, don't worry about this. I'll take care of this," and then proceeding to incompetently explain things you already knew or things like that. And that's practically more interesting than any game that has come out since on that topic. So, yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating book that has fascinating things to say about game design and the place it has in the world, far beyond this individual game it happens to be about.
And we also like ananthropy and encourage, people to support ananthropy.
Oh yeah, big time.
Particularly given the...
She made a big Twine game package this year that I haven't been able to play yet, unfortunately. But she's a big champion of the text adventure form these days, which is great.
Yep. Oh, we cleared books in...
There you go, read a book.
In epic time.
Yeah, we're going to have to slow down a little. A good thing we have a long-ass list of honorary mentions if we need it.
Oh my god, no, I mean, we have an entire year's worth of shit to get through, and, like, music is going to be a huge minefield, and the next category is video games.
Yes.
So,
and we can actually discuss some of these.
We don't really read, so... I'm sure that things will expand appropriately as we go into Burrell's. So Josh, what's your favorite game of the year, Josh?
Oh,
it's a depressing question, isn't it?
There was a lot of games that were going to come out in 2014 and which still say they're going to come out in 2014.
Doesn't look likely, though.
That I was all ready to be like super thrilled about. Like Hotline Miami 2, a game called Quadrilateral Cowboy, a game called... I forgot its name, a bunch of things. But none of them came out.
Yeah.
Not that nothing good came out this year. I mean, a lot of good things came out this year, but nothing, honestly, that I loved. Certainly nothing that lives up to Papers, Please, which I don't think we actually called our game of the year last year. I think we gave it an honorable mention, but in the fullness of time, I've come to realize that it's probably one of the most important games that came out last year, if not the most.
Yeah, this has not been a great year for interesting video games.
No,
unfortunately.
Not especially. So, I think I'm going to just have to say that my game of the year is Destiny. And I like Destiny. I mean, certainly it's been a long time since a game has kept me engaged for as long as Destiny has, although it has to be admitted that Destiny is somewhat manipulative in the way it does that. It's not in a way that I... terribly mind. Like, a lot of people have made a full-time hobby of complaining about Destiny. Like the same people, of course, are playing Destiny ceaselessly. But Destiny is just one of those kinds of games, right? Like, when here's the thing though. When Destiny was being marketed, they were saying these impossible things about it, like. I think I might have mentioned this in another episode, but they were saying, like, you'll have a badass story for every gun in your arsenal. I totaled our truck because I wasn't paying attention. We have to get to it.
Holy shit.
We destroyed our truck.
How did you do that?
I drove into the divider.
Well, good job. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. The fireworks are broken. They're all just torn in half. Alright. Oh, my windshield wipers.
Alright, we're taking broken non...
Wait, it didn't repair my truck. How do I get my truck? There we go. Repair it. Repair all. Thank you. The fireworks won't be repaired.
Nope.
You can't repair. Go away. How do I... Where was I? Oh yeah, they were saying things about Disney that made no damn sense.
Yeah.
And I fully expected the game to be like a cobbled together mess of
43%.
I fully expected the game to be a cobbled together mess of half-baked, over-ambitious ideas that fit together in no way whatsoever, not unlike the recent Elder Scrolls games. I've forgotten how to drive.
Yes.
But then I went over to a friend's house and played it, and I was pleasantly surprised to find. I don't care.
You're pleasantly surprised to
I
find.
was pleasantly surprised to find that it was just a fun first-person shooter with some MMO-ish elements in order to kind of give a little more dynamism to the replayability, a few more incentives to keep playing it. And, I think the nicest thing I can say about Destiny is that even if it didn't have any of this MMO junk on top of it, well, I wouldn't have put as many hours as I did, probably close to 100 or more. I would certainly replay it sometimes. It's just a really fun game, and it works. It's a game where the little things are what matters, right? Like, I mained the Warlock class, yes, and every class has its own double jump. The Warlock class has kind of a floaty jetpacky thing that inherits your momentum when you hit it. So if you hit it at the apex of your jump, you'll just kind of stay where you are for a second. Or if you hit it right at the beginning, you'll get a nice boost because it inherits your upward momentum, and you kind of just maintain that for a while, and you kind of get a feel for that. And one quirk of this jump is that, no, for real, one quirk of this jump,
I'm with you,
is that you can activate it as many times as you want in a single flight, right?
Yeah. It's like Princess Peach in Super Mario Brothers 2.
A little bit, yeah. It just feels nice. It feels good in your hands. But after a while of playing with this, I switched to the Hunter, and it dawned on me like 80 hours in that I had gotten so used to being able to activate this jump as many times as I wanted that every time I was about to take a hard landing, I would just kind of hit my thrusters for a second and then fall tenderly to the ground. And that was just something I started taking for granted as a thing I could do in Destiny. The Hunter has a traditional double jump. He can jump, and then when he's in the air, he can jump again. And so he can only do that once. And this means that the Hunter is a lot more prone to taking, hard landings. And as a result of that, I mean, the game has a threshold where before you take fall damage, your view will just kind of jerk downwards and back up. And that's something that started happening to me a lot as a Hunter. And
what point are you trying to make, Josh?
What I'm trying to say is that it's a game where you will discover pleasurable little nuances for eternity.
What Josh is trying to say is that the game of the year 2014 is a competently made shooter.
Oh no.
Because it's been so long.
Much more than competently. This game was like handcrafted to perfection in terms of game feel.
All right. There you
go. Just utter... Oh, what happened there? I almost drifted off the road.
But craftsmanship is the deal. Craftsmanship
Yes.
is the thing that you see in this game.
Yes.
I've expected you to talk also a little bit about the Marathon lore teasing.
I'm getting there, yes. The other thing about this game that I like is that it reminds me a lot of Marathon, which is an old game that Bungie made before Halo.
It's a game that Josh and I both love.
Oh yes, so much, so very much. Marathon is just great, and we won't talk about it at length because it didn't come out in 2014.
Oh Lord, no.
But just suffice it to say that you can go play Marathon for free right now. Just Google how to do that, and it's better than it was a contemporary competitor to Doom that came out on the Mac and was better than Doom, but no one heard of it because it was on the Mac.
Yep.
And it's got really nice Doom-style gameplay intertwined with a surprisingly high quality.
Surprisingly high quality, good and well written story, poetry. There's poetry.
There's poetry in it.
It's like a remarkably well written piece of science fiction in game form, and Bungie really want to make another Marathon game, but nobody will pay them to do it. So they're essentially kind of sneaking up on it in a bunch of different ways.
Yeah.
And one of the things about that is cool about Destiny is that there are a bunch of little references to those who are obsessive enough to pick up on them, which may consist only of Josh at this point. But
there used to be a big Bungie community around that kind of thing.
It's just been too
Bungie
many years
used to do this sort of thing all the time.
Years.
It has been too many years, but I'm not the only one. I'm the only one who the thing about the Marathon community. There's that community still out there, but they don't give a shit about Destiny.
Yep. They're waiting for the next Marathon game.
I can understand because Destiny's not as good as
Bungie
Marathon.
has been allowed to put 10%, a whole 10% of their staff toward making a new Marathon game.
Yeah.
So expect a new Marathon game
to come out in like a pseudo indie fashion.
Yeah, that'll be a thing.
It's a little bizarre. I mean, it's clear that Bungie still cares a lot about that game, and it's easy to see why if you play it. It's a real special game.
Yep. It's the foundation myth of their company.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And in a way, it's the creation myth of their new franchise, so it would seem.
All right.
The other thing that deserves to be said about Destiny, just very briefly, is that the criticism has been leveled at it that its story sucks, and this is true. But what is easy to overlook, because it's weirdly enough not in the game, you have to look at external material, but its world building is actually excellent. I mean, there's some just great stuff there if you care to go look. So I mean, that kind of thing appeals to me too, as a person who's fond of games like Dark Souls. So if that sort of thing wets your whistle.
Yeah, you'll just have to swallow a lot of dinklage on your way.
Yes, there's a lot of weirdly bad
dinklage action. Yeah. So that's yours. Mine.
I like this game too. This next one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that I can't really say that it's my favorite game of the year because it didn't come out this year. And it didn't come out last year or the year before. It's not out yet. That's Nuclear Throne. I've talked about Nuclear Throne here before, so I'm not going to go into it very, very thoroughly. Suffice to say that in terms of like the game feel bit,
I mean, Vlambeer are famous for that.
It's super good. It's super considered. It's a top-down shooter where you use your mouse to aim, and it is the best. And there's also just something uniquely pleasurable about playing a game which changes every week, which like updates every week. I mean, there's the problem that you have to unlock everything again every week, but also if you're
the unlocks are
it happens
easy.
In one playthrough, basically.
I think it deserves to be said about Nuclear Throne, if I'm not interrupting too much, that this is kind of a year where a lot of people became disillusioned with early access.
Yeah.
And Nuclear Throne is probably the best example I can think of how to do early access correctly. You said, it changes every week practically, and the updates are always pretty darn exciting.
You have to treat it as if it were your full-time job, essentially.
Yeah.
And you have to be actually developing it, and you have to be, you have to be conscientious enough to be like doing patch fixing while you're making the game, which is, I think, difficult, and I think it's no wonder that it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. But Vlambeer are champions.
Yes.
I should say that even though Nuclear Throne is my game of the year, and we've discussed why that is on earlier trucks, even though I spent months just playing Nuclear Throne and not really playing anything else, I've already clocked in more hours on Binding of Isaac Rebirth than I have on the entirety of Nuclear Throne.
Right.
Because Binding of Isaac is evil. And
do you still like Binding of Isaac?
I do still like Binding. Well, here's the thing, and I said I was going to talk about this, so I think this is a good time to talk about this.
Yep, fair enough.
Binding of Isaac, the original Binding of Isaac, felt to me like a cohesive artistic statement. It only felt to me like a cohesive artistic statement after I'd spent, literally hundreds of hours trapped in its guts. But it felt like, and once again I've discussed this before, but it felt like every element of it which seemed like gross and and excessive was really intentional, and that it was really all about what a 5-year-old is scared of, and from abandonment right down to poop. And I feel like the team that was in charge of making this remake / upmake / demake, depending on your point of view, is they didn't really get that part. They got that they had to put a lot of poop in it.
Yeah.
And they got that they had to put, gross and icky and kind of darkly funny things in it. But they faithfully ported over every little bit of the plot from the previous game, or from the previous iteration of the game, so that that story that I am interested in is still there, but they added some more things which fuck up the symmetry of it, and it's clear that they don't really understand that part, even though the gameplay is huge, and a lot of things that were bad about, that were like a little off about the previous one, have been corrected, and there's so much content, and basically it's ramped up the addictive parts of the game, and have also made it so that you have to play even more to get through everything.
Yes.
Not
so dissimilar from Destiny.
This is an act of evil, basically. They took the soul out of it, and also made the music and graphics shittier, and then and then made more of it.
And then added some features that make it so if you go back and play the old game, you're kind of missing out.
Right. It's a really, really terrible thing that they've done, and I've spent, I think I've been playing it for maybe a month now, and I've spent about 100 hours on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. A month and a half, 2 months. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I've been forced to take a break now, and I'm really enjoying it. But I just bought an entirely new computer so I can play it again. So
there will be other games for you to use your new computer on.
Yeah, I know. So
and maybe you'll be able to run some stuff you couldn't before if you're lucky.
So honorary mentions.
Well, hold on.
Are we going to do that at the end?
We'll get to the honorary mentions if I have to. But I've added this other game here because I guess call it my mobile game of the year. And I'm not going to say much about it because the less I say about it, the better.
Desert Golf.
Yes, Desert Golf. Desert Golf is a really good example in a way which I found rather new and almost revelatory. It's a game that it's one of those games that does things that only a game could do. You'll play it and it'll seem to be at first a very simple golf game. A nice, satisfying golf game in a desert. And in a way, that's all it is. But as you play it reveals itself to you in this very strange way, which works both in its mechanics and in a certain sense of exploration. So, if you're up for something weird, that will cause you to annoy your roommates by talking about it all the time.
Please check out Desert.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the Desert Golf is notable for being the least amount of actual data in a game to the amount of fascination that it engenders.
Yes. Absolutely. It's your favorite game designer's favorite game. It's one of those. I heard about it when a bunch of game designers started talking about it feverishly on Twitter, and it sucked me in. And it's still a reliable idle activity. It's a really good toilet game, really good subway game.
Good toilet game, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah. That's games.
That's games.
Unless we have some honorable mentions later.
Yeah, we'll circle back if we do.
We're actually running a little lower on time than I thought we would.
Well, games. And then we have music also to do.
Yeah, let's just keep going down the list.
Movies. Neither of us saw very many movies this year.
Yeah, I'm sure there were some great movies that we missed.
I'm sure there were plenty of fantastic ones. But the movie that we both actually saw this year that we liked the best was...
Whiplash.
It was indeed
Whiplash. We forgot to do a fucking drum roll for Whiplash.
Oh! God damn it!
Which is a movie about drum rolls. It opens on a drum roll. No, okay. Whiplash is just a fantastic piece of craft.
It's a real piece of craft.
It's a movie about drumming.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie about it's kind of a subversion of your teacher-student movie where the teacher teaches the student to be great and the student teaches the teacher something about himself.
Yeah.
Except in this case, the teacher is malicious and he turns the student into a fucking maniac. Yeah. Although he does arguably succeed at making him brilliant on the drums.
Yeah, indeed. The lovely thing about this movie is that it does not answer the questions that it raises, and I think depending on how you go into it and how you feel about it, the movie will give you ammunition for either point of view. The plotting is a little bit of a stretch in places. The plotting doesn't quite wash out if you think about it too hard. But that's not really the point. The point is in the interaction between these two characters,
who, it must be said, are performed brilliantly by someone I've never heard of, and J.K. Simmons.
J.K. Simmons.
This is the best thing I've seen J.K. Simmons in
indeed,
for a long time.
A definite, maybe not cresting the heights of. Oh boy, this joke would work if I could remember the name, but I can't.
Portal 2.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Well, what is the name of the guy in Portal 2?
Cave Johnson.
Cave Johnson, yes. It doesn't quite scale the heights of Cave Johnson, but he does great work here, and I can't think of the name of this character. It's just J.K. Simmons being a tremendous asshole in a way that's incredibly entertaining. If you like watching people be tremendous assholes, I'm talking to you Homestuck fans out there. If you like creative invective, this movie is full of wonderful creative invective,
which frequently goes too far.
Yes, it does. If you're particularly sensitive, perhaps do not.
Yes.
But.
It also deserves to be said that the movie has a wonderful symmetry to it in that it is a movie about the honing of craft and the sacrifices one might choose to make in order to do that, and the movie just displays brilliant
finely
craft.
honed craft, and also
Yes.
perhaps a little bit of soullessness.
Yes,
So
yes.
yeah, it's a great. We love things that work on multiple levels and say the same thing on multiple levels, and this is definitely one of them.
Wouldn't it have been funny if my fireworks had crashed into that oil?
It would have been. Everybody wouldn't have blown up because this game doesn't fucking have explosions. You
I
think
don't
it was
think
the
that-
basic thing for a game to have?
Would
is
jostling
explosions.
fireworks around really cause them to explode?
No, it
though?
wouldn't.
I
It wouldn't.
mean,
It wouldn't. That's mostly from like when we were actually transporting volatile chemicals.
Yeah.
So yeah, that we got through that pretty quick because we only really saw that movie this year.
Yeah. We also saw Snowpiercer, which we already talked about. And
Yeah.
I mean, that movie's definitely worth talking about. One of the more interesting movies of the year that I've seen for sure.
Yeah.
We could give. Guardians of the Galaxy probably had the best dance off in any movie this year.
Yeah, we liked Guardians of the Galaxy, although it's one of those ones that really has not stood up in my brain in retrospect.
Go see it.
Yep.
Whatever.
You might enjoy yourself, you might not.
I bet we're gonna be stuck here forever, so that'll add some time.
Fantastic. Music.
Yes.
Now
Lots
this,
of good music this year.
yeah, this was. I mean, people like a lot of people, who are like real music critics. I've heard saying, well, this, most of the music that we talked about this year is actually came out in 2013, much in the way that we feel about games this year. But I actually think that a lot of really good music came out this year, and a lot of stuff that was new to me as well. New, good music by new bands, good music by old bands. But really, I think if Josh and I had to choose, well, I should really only speak for myself here. Josh, what's your favorite album of this last year?
I'm torn between the two you were thinking of,
Yeah.
honestly.
On the
Although
one,
I would probably say that it's ultimately Cyro by Aphex Twin.
Cyro by Aphex Twin.
You were going to say the other
I
one,
was
I'm
going to
guessing?
say Mouth Sounds
Yeah.
by Neil Cicerega, which has not turned up on a lot of top 10 lists because people are fools as far as I'm concerned.
people, the fucking lamestream music industry is still learning how to deal with net releases.
Yeah, and also it's clearly a joke.
Yes.
But it's such a beautifully realized and executed joke that... Are you fucking kidding me? He's just not moving.
Yeah, this is what always happens.
He's just not moving.
in these particular intersections.
Why don't you nudge him?
Because then he'll freeze. That's what they do when you nudge them.
Okay.
It's not GTA where they kind of just... I thought he was moving for a second, but it was just my camera. I'm probably going to have to snail around him. Keep talking about mouth sounds.
Yeah, okay. So Mouth Sounds, in case you don't know, is a... And really when I'm talking about Mouth Sounds, I'm talking about both Mouth Sounds and Mouth Silence. Its companion piece, oh my god! A series of mashup albums by Neil Cicerega with some original content in them as well, which are
Just amazing.
notable in both their execution, their listenability even after the joke has worn off, which is why it's my top thing. I think I've probably spent more time listening to Mouth Sounds and Mouth Sounds than I have to any other album this year, and also their brutality. To the mind of the listener, like the jokes that he's playing here are mean ones. They're jokes that are meant to undermine both undermine like the good music that he is working with, to elevate the bad music that he's working with, to contrive to suggest that there is really no difference between the good music and the bad music that he's working with,
Yes.
and also to kick you in the nuts by putting horrible things in your head that won't go away. And so I can't really praise Mouth Sounds and Mouth Silence enough.
Yeah. I feel like there's more to be said here.
But we've already said we've definitely already
we already
discussed
do
this
it?
on the what we haven't discussed though is Aphex Twin. I don't think we've ever mentioned Aphex Twin on the Trucks cast.
That's true, we haven't. Aphex Twin released his first new album under the name Aphex Twin in many years this year. Aphex Twin, if you haven't heard of him, then you're lame.
He's an irascible Irishman named Richard D. James,
Yes.
who was one of the founding fathers of
The electronic music scene as it exists today, really.
yes.
The specific movement he would be called a part of is IDM, but that's a label that just about every artist under which rejects.
You can't call yourself intelligent dance music.
No. I think Aphex Twin likes brain dance. Was it him who likes the word brain dance?
I don't know. There are a couple of things about listening to. I mean, first of all, Cyro is an album that doesn't break any new ground, but just does all of the stuff that Aphex Twin does that is fun and enjoyable to listen to, and does it really well. The major thing that distinguishes Aphex Twin's music from other electronic music, to my ears, is that he never does the same thing twice.
Yes, it's full of one-off details, and this is achieved.
But I want to just clarify. I don't mean like he doesn't, one song doesn't sound like another one. I mean that within a given song, he won't loop a thing and have it be exactly the same and do it again.
At least, at least not on Cyro. He used to love loops. I mean, back in the ambient days.
Right. But the point of the thing that I think is really worth noting about this album is just the amount of effort that's gone into tweaking every little bit.
Yes, I mean he's been sitting on it for 10 years and it shows. I mean he's been fiddling with it for that entire time. I would imagine, based on the way it sounds. Like you can just hone in on any 5 seconds of music in this thing and like pick out tons of little details. And indeed the cover art for this album is, among other things, just an exhaustive list of all the different pieces of kit he used to produce the album, and it's a long fucking list of some analog synthesizers, some digital synthesizers, just like dozens of the fucking things. And other artists will make their entire album on a fucking laptop. Aphex Twin lives in a house which, as far as
the walls seem to be made of old drum machines. He
yes.
just seems to live in a hovel that's constructed out of old drum machines.
Yes, he just kind of goes between them like a man. Well, no analogy here, unfortunately, but and what's amazing is that he raises kids in this house, and he there's music you can hear on the internet which is at least allegedly by his kid, and it's the most bonkers thing you've ever fucking heard. I mean, this kid just listens to his dad making his weird music all day, and he lives in a cave of synthesizers, and he just started messing with them, and there's like a prodigal son narrative to this.
Part of the unique pleasure of listening to Aphex Twin in 2014 is that in the olden days he's a big self-mythologizer. That's part of his shtick and why he's kind of in the position that he is. That he decided that because all of the other electronic musicians were very anonymous, he would put his face on literally everything,
and he has a creepy grinning face.
Took that joke as far as he could, and then took it farther. He lies to interviewers all the time, or has over the years, and has all these contradictory backstories, and all these rumors, like he lived in a monument in the middle of a traffic circle, or whatever. And
there was a master stroke in this regard this year, where he was doing these unusually forthcoming interviews all year, to hype up his album, and he was seemingly going mainstream. The album was promoted over London on a blimp. It was put on Spotify. We saw graffiti for it around the city.
Yep.
And then at the end of all this hype campaign, he did one final interview in which he says all this bonkers stuff about 9/11 being an inside job, which he may or may not literally believe, and showed off some of the music that his kid did, and then the final question is, do you ever feel guilty standing in for Richard for these interviews? And the guy goes, yeah, well, he pays well, and I think I've been doing this ever since, 7 years ago. More than that.
So the enjoyable thing about, the enjoyable sort of extra layer about listening to Aphex Twin 2014 is that you have these all of these narratives are just sort of, twining and climbing. And,
And he's clearly one of the musical geniuses of our time. I mean, I don't think I'm being hyperbolic in saying that. I mean, okay, it's obviously a necessarily hyperbolic thing to say, but he's influenced everybody.
Right. There's that, and there's also just that there are very few objective measures that you can go back to with music, but he has a level of complexity afoot in his compositions which is just not present in anybody else's who's doing the same sort of thing.
Yeah. You can find a similar level of detail in electronic music in the new Boards of Canada album, for instance, but it's a very different tack. I mean, They have a similar narrative about them in that they go hunting down for obscure pieces of technology, but for them it's about hiding things in there, whereas in Aphex Twin it's just a mountain of detail avalanching onto you.
Yeah. And so Cyro, definitely listen to it.
Oh yes.
It's a lovely thing to put on in the background of just about any task that you might have to do.
Mm-hmm.
We're running low on time.
Yeah, we're getting to the sort of the end of our list.
Okay. So
We
yeah,
also put Owen Pallett on here. Owen Pallett's 2014 album is just extremely good.
I would say so. I would recommend Always, who have made the best like summary pop album that I have heard in a long time. Milo and Hellfire Club, who are a new, conscious but black-led Southern California hip-hop collective who are kind of the new Anticon as far as I'm concerned. Definitely worth paying attention to. Milo is the best one out of them. There's another guy in there who's pretty good called Open Mike Eagle, who I find kind of insufferable. And Bus Driver, who, if you don't know who Bus Driver is, better to just let that go. And Death Grips have I really liked the half an album that Death Grips put out this year, and if they do sneak out the other half of that album before the year's over, I might have to consider, where that goes on my list, because they're amazing. And the new track that they leaked, or that they released from the second half of this new album, is bonkeroony and really enjoyable. So Death Grips still awesome as far as I'm concerned. I just snuck all of my music stuff in there.
Okay.
And
Did we not want to elaborate on Owen Pallett at all? He was in our main list here.
I don't know why he's in our main list, really. I mean, I think that you like that album more than I do at this point.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Like, I don't know what I would say about it. It's a slightly enigmatic album in terms of what it's about, but unlike his older albums, it does feel like it's about something very personal to him.
It's a personal album. We've also talked about it on here before.
Have we?
Yes.
I don't remember that. Well,
yeah, it was a while ago. This is the problem with it, and your event list. Is the Josh and I basically functionally only remember the last 6 months, if that. So,
well, okay.
Yeah,
Let's
TV.
move on. TV.
Best TV show of the year, as far as I'm concerned, is Adventure Time. You, Josh?
It's a tough question. I liked Louis a lot. I liked Louis' new season. I always liked Louis. Louis is fraught. Every time, but I think it's testament to the strength of Louis that every time he has a season, it becomes like the talk of the town, at least among TV nerds.
Well, literally in the New Yorker, usually it's in the talk of the town section, which tells you a little bit about what the audience is.
Right, and and that's probably got something to do with the fact that it's set in New York City, and that it's a pretty good portrait of the city. Mm-hmm. But Louis has been taking topics on, that's for sure.
Yeah, they're difficult ones. And, he's had some successes doing that and some failures, I would say, as he has in his stand-up.
But I think he's generally characterized by, a reflectiveness, which his persona belies, and an intelligence, and a boldness. Certainly that boldness goes a little overboard on occasion, but it's always, even when that happens, there's like a worthy discussion to be had about it. But it's rare to find a TV show which is just so consistently cinematically directed. Like it just feels like a long, really good movie.
If you like Woody Allen.
Yeah, it's a bit like Woody Allen.
It's more than a bit like Woody Allen.
Louis is less of a bastard than Woody Allen.
Yes, that is true. But really, it's kind of eerily similar. It's occurring to me, just like the cinematography, the pacing, the
slight touches of surreality.
Yeah, it's quite Woody Allen.
Yeah, a bit more postmodern, as it would have to be, but just good. And it's for being a sitcom, it rarely goes out of its way to be funny, which is impressive.
Mm-hmm. So I've already talked about Adventure Time over a lot, as we both have. It was on our list last year, in fact. The thing that I want to mention about it that I don't think I have before, and the thing that I think puts it at the top of my list, is that it is poetry. That there are episodes of Adventure Time which are just this sort of delirious flow of hepcat lingo that it's astounding that it's on TV. That this is just like Jesse Moynihan. The stuff that Jesse Moynihan does is just stream of consciousness hipster mysticism, third eye shit, and it's on TV, and it's completely unfiltered and unmediated, and it's just on TV, and I love that. Yeah, I think that's totally worthwhile, and I think there are a lot of other people on the show who are doing really good things, like Tom Herpich and Steve Wolfhard, who did the Lemon Hope.
Lemon Hope was a
fantastic episode, and that they're able to do there's that, and then there's serious emotional pathos and storytelling, and old school folklore kind of tropes in there as well.
They got a guest episode this season by the guy who did the Tatami Galaxy, and that was a little cone to the life cycle. In this really,
food chain.
This really like sideways fashion. It was.
Adventure Time is doing things that no other TV show on TV is doing, and it should really be
on everybody's list.
Should really be on everybody's list.
It's been falling out of people's lists. This I think is a tragedy.
Yep. Whatever. It stopped doing a couple of things that people liked. If you like those things, you should check out Steven Universe, the thing that Rebecca Sugar, who did that thing that you liked that it doesn't do anymore, is doing now.
Yes, but that's the strength of Adventure Time, is that it keeps exploring different angles.
Absolutely. Just because the artist stops doing the thing that you like, maybe you should learn to like the new thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
I also really want to mention, miniseries is kind of a different category. Over the Garden Wall, if you have not seen Over the Garden Wall, it's a little old-fashioned in that, there was definitely only white people in it, and, it's very definitely about,
fear of the other.
And it's very definitely about this guy's particular experience growing up in the 80s, and he's written a cartoon about it, which is full of magic and mystery and Americana, but it's so incredibly good. It's like, speaking of attention to detail, speaking of putting layers in, speaking of uniting a bunch of different threads, it also does this thing. It also is like an Into the Woods kind of Lost Child folklore sort of thing, which is all Americana and doesn't have any of the sort of the English fairy tale stuff in it at all, which is great. And the music is outstanding, as is the sort of scenery set design. And so I would very much encourage you to, if you're a cartoon fan and you haven't watched Over the Garden Wall, to check it out, because it is... it's also I don't know how it got made. I love that it got made. I don't know how it got made, and I think that we are in a golden moment for cartoons generally. I think that cartoons for grown-ups. So you got Bob's Burgers. You got your Archers and your Venture Brothers and stuff, and you got
you got these web things like Bee and Puppy Cat.
Yeah, the web things like Bee and Puppy Cat and Bravest Warriors. You got basically,
you got Ryan North doing the Adventure Time comics.
If you like cartoons, this is a good time, and this is a good time to like cartoons. I'll put it that way. We're in a really good moment for cartoons. Speaking of cartoons,
yes, next on our list is webcomics. We don't read real comics, so we have a webcomics category.
Yep.
I heard there were some really good real comics this year.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. Unfortunately, I really wouldn't know.
Yeah. I wrote Ebbets on this list just because I discovered it this year. It's a little bit beyond description for me, honestly. Ebbets is just it's
self-consciously arty surrealism.
Yes, that doesn't really do it justice.
It doesn't, because it's also sweet.
Yes, and it's really
genuinely mysterious.
It feels very much like a window into its creator's subconscious.
Definitely working on the same sort of Adventure Time kick in a certain way.
Yeah. So just go check it out. EBBITS.
Yep, it's over now.
It's over.
Yep,
that's a sad thing.
So you can enjoy a whole bunch of it. Although I think that there's still text. Well, we were kind of getting a little close to the end there. Maybe drifting slowly back down out of a meadow is a good way to pad this out a little bit.
You got plenty to say about. Well, okay, Homestuck we talked about.
Homestuck we talked about last week. The return of Homestuck is if we were making a traditional top 10 list, it would have to be on it, because it's really been a gift, and I quite enjoy what's happened to it.
It's nice to feel good about it again.
It really is. It's kind of a pleasure. The comic that I discovered this year, which I think is the best, the new webcomic that I found this year, which is the best, is called Poppy Opossum, and it won't get a lot of attention because it's furries, although not like furries with human hands, but just it's more like Redwall talking animals than it is Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
And it's just...
I've never heard of it. I don't know what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a super good example of that particular thing, and I really enjoy it. And you should check it out if you don't have an allergy to talking animals.
I have some video game honorable mentions to list really quickly. You've heard of.
I have a lot of webcomic honorable mentions as well, but go ahead.
Transistor feels like it came from an alternate universe of game design. It doesn't entirely work, but it's definitely worth playing. It's one of the more interesting things I've played in a while. And I say that as someone who didn't like Bastion very much. Samurai Gun came out in December of last year.
We've probably played it together more than we've played anything besides Trucks. It's fantastic.
That game is the best fighting game of the past 5 years that I've played.
Shout out to Dose 1's Samurai Gun and Heavy Bullet
Shout out
CPs.
to Dose 1 doing video game stuff in general. I mean, that's a really unexpected development, which has worked out surprisingly well for him.
That's on my top 10 music list, are those two
Yeah.
EPs. I think they're really good. The best things that he's put out in ages. Wave Racer is on your list
Yes,
here.
Wave Racer. He's kind of a stand-in for all this weird net music I discovered this year. Just a lot of people having tons of fun on SoundCloud making weird music, which pulls from nerd culture in like ways which feel not gimmicky, but a little bit gimmicky, but at the same time
Definitely genuine.
genuinely cool too. Like not in a wow I can do this way, but more in a my culture likes this way. You know, it kind of we've reached a certain point in that, which is interesting to me.
If you're concerned about cool as Josh is, this is a good development.
You know, I had a thought earlier about how being completely unconcerned with cool is disingenuous, but I've forgotten it mostly now.
We can talk about that in another Trucks. I think
Yes.
that's worth discussing its own. I think that's worth its own discussion.
I'm so cool I can park a truck.
I'm so cool that I pretend that I care about cool when in fact I don't.
And speaking of good early access games, a game called Invisible Ink is really interesting. It's like
stealth XCOM.
It's a turn-based. Yes, that's a good way of putting it. And procedural generation, it turns out, is a really good thing for the stealth genre.
Mm-hmm. Xenonauts. It's like a better XCOM.
Better,
harder.
It's a bit. It's like a more. It's basically a new graphical port of the classic XCOM formula.
A crunchier XCOM.
So if you want to play old XCOM but you don't want to deal with a 10-year-old interface, Xenonauts.
Absolutely. Webcomic honorable mentions. This has been a really good year for Octopus
Reckless!
Pie.
I've never gotten that low a score before.
That is something else.
In a way, that makes this a special Trucks to cap off the year.
Yeah, wow.
I didn't get any experience for it.
That's the worst. That is the worst. Yeah, no, look at the... Well, of course you didn't. Look at the negative experience of the damage penalty.
Well, it would have retracted experience if it could have.
Yeah, you lost...
I lost tens of thousands of euros.
You lost like about 30,000 euros, a little more than 30,000 euros.
I don't know if this game can actually deduct that, but...
Well, who knows? A little less than 30,000 euros. So that was something. A good omen for 2015, this.
Webcomic honorable mentions.
Webcomic honorable
let's
mentions.
do it.
This has been a great year for Octopus Pie. This has been a great... I mean, shout out to Cat and Girl, which continues to be my favorite webcomic of all time. And, I'm sure there are others. Dave Willis. I've gotten a lot of pleasure out of reading Dumbing of Age this year, and maybe you have too.
All right, everybody. This was a somewhat rushed... I really thought we'd have longer, but it's probably a blessing that we didn't.
Yeah, nobody wants to spend an hour and a half.
Yes. All right. Thanks for listening. See you next year, jerks. Leave us a comment.